Thanks for staying with us. Let's continue to unpack President Cyril Ramaphosa's SONA address. Civil society groups have been demanding what they call decisive leadership from the president as well as government. Nzama Mbalati is the interim CEO of lobby group HEALA, a coalition of civil society organizations that advocate for equitable access to affordable and nutritious food for all in South Africa. And he's part of those that wrote that open letter there to the president calling for a myriad of issues to be resolved, especially when you think about the issues of unemployment, etc. But let's speak to him now. Thank you so much for your time. Did the speech hit all the right notes for you?
Thank you so much, Bongiwe, and the opportunity to speak to the viewers. Unfortunately not. It didn't reach or hit all the right note. I think what is critical and what is lacking at the moment is that the South African government needs to speak about the economy that is people-centered. At the moment of lack of economic growth or stagnant economic growth, I think we need to see more commitment from government and investment from government to small business in our interest as well as the small-scale farmers. And this can be done in many ways, looking at the procurement and the public sector. For example, how are we doing procurement in schools, nutrition program, how are we doing procurement in hospitals? We feel like there is still a whole lot more of monopoly that has not been tapped in terms of supporting the local economic growth by making sure that, in the school nutrition program, for example, we can expand it. At the moment, we know that we're spending R5 a day per child, and we think we can do a lot more to actually expand the school and reinvest in the school nutrition program as one of the things of showing how we can invest in people as a way of building economic growth. So if you invest in the school nutrition program, for example, you are actually addressing nutrition, you are addressing right to education, you are also addressing hunger in a way. So I think those are some of the things that we felt they were underwhelming. There was no clear strategy on how will we build the economy that is centered on local economies, that is centered on actually making sure that we invest in small businesses and small-scale farmers to produce food that can actually be shared and be consumed by people at the local level.
Your organization, often talks about the issues around nutrition, especially, whether it's at school, whether it's adults and all of that. But let's stay in school and look at the feeding scheme program. Right now, in its current form, there are others who say that it is working because a number of children are able to get access to it and they're able to at least have, in some instances, up to 2 meals a day, something that they would ordinarily not have at home. So I know that right now, a lot of the money that you're talking about is also going to procuring some of the food and also assisting some of the small players in this regard. But is the food, in your view, from what you've seen, that the children are eating worth the money that the country is currently spending?
And that's a critical question because the current problem that we are seeing in terms of the school nutrition program is that it doesn't give children the nutrition that they need. So one of the things that I think we've realized is that clearly the norms and standard in terms of the provision of food at school is an issue. One province and the other, and local school and the other, they are actually providing nutrition according to the budget, limitation according to what they deem necessary, and there's no clear view in terms of investing the best back to make sure that kids do get nutritious food. So one of the practical ways, and I think in terms of building the economy, that's one of the things that have been lacking is what are some of the very practical ways of making sure that the money that government invests at local level, for example, as per schools, is actually empowering and building the economy at the local level. Because now the biggest problem is that we're still purchasing a lot of food, and actually a lot of food is coming from the big retail shops. And then that is actually exacerbating the monopoly and leaving out local economy and building, in local farmers, small food producers, as well as making sure that, the economy can benefit people at the local level. And those are some of the things we feel they are not cascading right. What is given at school? most of the time will be, beans and starch. And one or twice of the time, there aren't vegetables and fruits that are actually provided. We have to commend government. Over 9 million children are getting food, and we must emphasize that most of these children, this is the food, the meal that they will have for the entire day. And we really appreciate government in many instances and school governing bodies at local level looking at how can they make sure that with the food they buy and the food they cook can actually take kids into actually having some food that they can take home for dinner, because we know and understand that a hungry child at school, it's a hungry family at home. And looking at what is the relationship between food and health is absolutely critical. And I think one of the things that we've been calling for, and I think we've seen government being too lenient, is make sure that you protect the population's health by ensuring that you increase health taxes. So health on tobacco, alcohol, or health on unhealthy food, health on sugary beverages. This is the money that can actually be soft ring fenced and be allocated in terms of how do we actually promote good health and nutrition for the population, starting with school. This is the program that can easily be enhanced and be a win for government and the population and all people living in South Africa.
So in that regard, then, the president also talking about the fact that the SRD grant will be extended. A number of people, of course, are welcoming this to say that it does go some way towards ensuring that somebody does have something to put on the table. But there are others, listening to some of the political parties in their reactions yesterday, some say that the president should have been bold enough and start saying that the country will see a basic income grant, as others have been calling for that. So the SRD grant being extended, how far does that go towards ensuring that nutrition levels are in fact achieved in South Africa?
Yeah, and I think we have to commend government, because we know any money that we put in individuals and households really makes sure that there is actually food at home in most instances. We know there are issues of, the cost of electricity and the availability of electricity, which is an issue which we must not devote it away from people accessing food. I think it's important, and we do welcome government extending the SRD grant, but the issue is that it's still overwhelmingly under the food poverty line, that we know according to the statistics SA, it's around 540. So it's going almost around 600. That was before we could speak about the inflation that will kick into this year. So I think it's absolutely important that we commend government, but also as civil society, we can continue to hold government accountable and show alternatives that can work. And I think the basic income grant, it's a safety net that can expand social protection and social wage and ensure that people can actually access food at the households.
All right, Nzama, thank you so much for your time. Do appreciate your reaction this afternoon. That is Nzama Mbalati. He is the interim CEO of lobby group HEALA.